Charter Township of Oxford Board of Trustees, Wednesday, July 12th, 2023. And if we'd all please stand and pay respects to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Noting of the roll, please.
Noted, there is a quorum.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari. I have a second by Margie Payne. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll
Aye.
call, right? For closed session, roll call?
We're approving.
We're not there yet.
Oh, sorry. Aye.
Okay, item number 5, purpose.
I'll make a motion to meet an open session, entertain a motion to take a roll call vote, 2/3 majority needed. We're going in closed session for the following purposes. To enter into a closed session to discuss a confidential legal opinion regarding liquor license enforcement pursuant to MCL 15.268H, MCL 15.243LG, and the liquor letter of credit to include the township board, 2 township attorneys, and administrative assistant Danielle Smith.
Better include your recording secretary.
Oh, and our recording secretary Susan McCullough.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. My question is, can our planner remain in the room?
They can as a consultant.
Pardon me?
They can as a consultant, yes.
Okay, could you include Doug Luan, please?
I'll include also our planner, Mr. Lawand, as well.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to close the open meeting. Roll call?
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. And Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Clarification, that was to go into closed session.
That was to go into closed session, yes. Okay, Phil has to get out of here, camera guy. Sorry about that.
I'll make a motion to direct the county law firm to address the four bullet items discussed in closed session.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Nold. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Trustee Charles. Yes. Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. And Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. Item 6, approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
All right. Item 7, public comment on items not on the agenda. Any public would like to come up and make comment? Yes, sir.
Good evening, board members. CJ Carnacchio, Communications and Grants Manager. I just want to let everyone know the Helen Smith Park, there's still a few things left to complete, but it is open and the public has been using it. It's been great seeing people riding their bikes up here, walking up here, even had people drive up here, had some people from Oxford Village, from Oxford Woods, come to bring their kids to play up here. It's been really gratifying. Just want to thank all the people, the Fort County Community Foundation for their grant, and all the donors who contributed and made the project happen. There's a new sign out there that lists all the donors who contributed. I urge you guys to go out there and read the names of all the generous people and organizations in our community. It's been a really gratifying project, and I want to thank the board for their support, and particularly thank Supervisor Curtis, who's been very supportive of the project from day one. So I encourage you all to go out there and take a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the audience like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Don Volosik. I live in the Waterstone community. And I just want to thank the board for voting no to the MI Homes application for rezoning. We appreciate you doing that on behalf of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Any other members of the community want to speak on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, I made a change to the agenda this time, moving the Board of Trustees comments forward, because most oftentimes, members of the audience leave prior to our speaking our mind and things we want to talk about. I'll entertain next time having 2 board comments sections, but I want to address the public because we can't talk back and forth during public comment, but we can certainly make a trustee comment that might answer a question and other members of the audience can hear us. So I'm going to start with Trustee Charles. Do you have any board comments?
Sure.
Okay.
Thursday concerts in the park. The DDA has concerts last week. If you were there, it was pretty fully attended with millions of kids, or a large number anyhow. The Washington Square vendor area was packed. We've got more vendors calling every day than we know what to do with, quite frankly, which is pretty cool. This Thursday we have Alan Turner playing. They do country music. And then for you reggae fans, I've arranged for a reggae band on August 10th, so get out your dreadlocks. Terry Brown, a friend of mine, coming up from Detroit, they have a pretty good, legitimate reggae band. So August 10th, you gotta put that in your calendars, please. So that's it for now.
Clerk Wright?
Yeah, just a combination to communication manager Carnacchio for his efforts on putting that park together. It does look very nice, and like you said, I've seen children and others out there with their kids on it, so great addition. Thank you.
Treasurer Ferrari? Trustee Noel?
I came up to the Township Hall on an afternoon of a busy schedule, and a young man that was in charge of putting a pocket park in commandeered me to come out and take a walk. And he was very passionate about the park. I'm glad to see the park up. Glad to see it's raining to help our seed out there. That's a good thing. And I appreciate the support of the Kelly firm in our closed session.
Thank you. Trustee Payne?
Nothing other than, I do think it needs to, with
trustee comments need to go in twice because so often I think of comments during the board meeting, so
Okay.
that's my vote.
For our next meeting, we can do that. Noted. Trustee Colvin.
Well, I was gonna talk about the concert in the park, but Trustee Charles handled that for me, thank you. Also, if anybody, OCTV is looking for on-air personalities, so if anybody wants to volunteer to be an on-air personality for OCTV, please let us know.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I have 6. 1, budget activity. An email was sent by Danielle with crucial dates. We're starting the budget process. The budget has to be turned in to the county with the appropriations by September 28th? September 28th. So in your email was a timeline and dates of meetings that we're gonna have for budget, public hearings and budget workshops. So I have a copy of it here if you need a copy, but we're gonna start working on that. Number 2, Tim London, our building official, just received state certification and MS4 for soil erosion compliance with the state. In the past, it was overlooked, and this is the first time since 2015, but building official Tim London worked with Jim Sharp Engineering and Brendan, and we accomplished it with minor things that have to be changed, and that's only including a yes or a no on the application box. So kudos to the building official, he really worked hard on that and accomplished it. 3rd, the sheriff's build improvement for downstairs. The concept is done. I'll be glad to show it to everybody, but I wanted to first get a construction estimate, which is included in our first billing from Auger, Klein and Associates. So I should have at the next meeting the proposed build out and an estimate construction cost. Number 4, the sheriff's millage work has started for 2024 ballot. Thanks to all who have put forward some good ideas. Joe, working with us, the fire department and the sheriff's department, we're scheduling a meeting with the Oakland County Sheriff head to be so we can clarify contract and project out our millage cost for the next 6 to 8 years. Number 5, August 11th. I'm going to steal somebody's thunder here, but the fireworks at the Township Park will be happening from 6 to 9. 6 to 9, the fireworks will happen at 9:30, but we will be recognizing the Township's first responders. We're going to have a display of food trucks, fireworks, and sheriff and fire department vehicles showing the Township residents what their township is protected by. Number 6, I have something for CJ. I have a safety helmet and a safety vest. The only thing I forgot to get was some sunscreen. Currently, the township is seeing $50 million in construction of commercial properties around. CJ was out in that parking lot daily, watching everything go on. But he got a sunburn, and I got a call from OSHA, he didn't have a helmet on or a vest. So he now has one, and he can hang that prominently in his office because that was a very well done job. That's it. Okay, item number 9, fire department. Chief?
Good evening. Not a whole lot to report tonight, except still going to be working with Raina Emmons on what we're going to do as far as millage, and building out that projection to see where we're going to be and what we need to do to make things meet our needs in this coming round. Also, I just gave a little heads up to Brittany this evening. We're going to be working with the Kelly folks to update our burn ordinance and our inspection and fees and schedules to bring that up to date. That's still very old and definitely outdated as far as all we get is $25 for an inspection for things that may take us hours and days to put together, so we want to get that updated. We're gonna mirror some of the local communities that are on the same pace as us with some of the stuff they're seeing. And then today we got official word from the state of Michigan that our high school EMT program licensure that we put in for to take over completely by the Oxford Fire Department was approved. We are now licensed solely as the provider to provide the EMT high school program.
Cool.
And this fall, we are looking at the largest class thus far. We've got 25 students enrolled. So it'd be a big class this year. We're kind of worried about that, but
Good job.
so.
You know, one thing we learned, Chief, and thank you very much for having this review of those fee charges. The township growing as it is, that project in McLaren is $35 million. It's 3 floors. It's suppressed. It's got egress, ingress. $25 to go through 500 sheets of paper.
Well, it's not only that, like when I was with West Bloomfield and Henry Ford built their hospital, now granted, much larger facility, but just the testing of the alarm and suppression systems for that facility took us about 3 weeks, where Henry Ford literally had to pay us, pay the fire department to cover overtime for 8 to 10 people a day to sit and watch the ductwork sensors and the lights and the various strobes and make sure everything worked. And currently right now we get $25 for that.
Yeah. So as we grow, we learn.
Yeah.
And we're
so
chasing that tail.
we're trying to get us up to speed, and
Yes. Thank you very
it's looking good so far. So that's all I had. Unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions for the chief?
Good question.
Yes, sir.
Chief, what's with the trucks, the food trucks, how's that going with the change from who does the inspection? Township, fire department?
Oh, as far as for the township, we're up and running, no issues whatsoever. We've done, I don't know, about a dozen or so, I think, this year so far. The only hiccup we had was somebody who tried to get in at the Tough Mudder without getting inspected, but we ended up doing a day of inspection for them at the new fee.
At the double fee?
At the double fee. Well, they said they didn't know, which we all kind of chuckle about that because they had to sign a contract, right? So, but everything's going well with that. Yeah.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chief Majestic? Seeing none, thanks, Chief. Okay, item number 10, Sheriff Engineering Report. It was in the package, board members, if you all got a chance to read it. If you have any questions, we'd entertain them at this time. Clerk Wright.
Yeah, just wondering, Engineer Sharp, do you have any update on the well at the fire station?
Yeah, so the well has been drilled. They determined what the aquifer was. The pump has been ordered. The electrician is supposed to be out possibly next week. And we're also supposed to have a meeting with DTE regarding the setting of the transformer out there. Once the electric is all installed, then they can install the pumps and put the hydrant on and so forth. Nick said that he hopes to have it done probably within the next 6 weeks, like fully completed, is the bottom line. And then we've already bid the driveway improvements and the crossover improvements, so that contractor is on board. I've spoken to him, and he would like for the well drilling contractor to be out of there and completed with all their work before he comes in and does his. So we're probably looking at maybe a September start date for him, which is fine because it's all concrete work.
And then the parking lot out there.
The parking lot out here,
Yes.
I still have not heard on their start date, basically. They were supposed to get back with me, I think, last week, so I'll follow up with them. And but they were thinking like August was probably their start date, sometime in there. Last I talked to them, but I'll get a firm start date with them.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Trustee Colvin.
I'm just curious about the Taco Bell development. The last time I was at Meyer, the entire parking lot was dug up. Is this going to be an ongoing concern? Do we know if they're gonna have, I mean, it was like outside of the construction area of Meyer, the parking lot was dug up. I assume they're hooking up to water or something, I don't know.
Yeah, there was a sewer connection. They had to run their sewer lead. And unfortunately, the sewer lead is close to that main Meyer driveway on the east side. So yes, they had to dig from the Taco Bell across the parking lot there. Meyer is supposed to come in and redo their parking lot this summer, is what we heard. afterward. I haven't confirmed that with them because it didn't have to go through the whole site plan process, but my understanding was that Meyer was gonna be responsible for those repairs to the parking lot. So we'll make sure that it's all cleaned up one way or another before the Taco Bell gets its C of O, and that somebody's gonna be repairing that for sure.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you, Jim.
Yep.
We have no unfinished business. Number 12, new business. Parks and Recreation fireworks permit approval. Director Castoni.
Good evening, Director Castoni, Parks and Recreation Department. What you have in front of you is another request for permission to launch fireworks. Obviously, with the drought in June, we had postponed those fireworks. Fireworks company was gracious enough to take what we did pay them and apply it to future shows. Being that we canceled early enough, they didn't have any lost fees in product or insurance. Working with the township on a new event out at the park that Supervisor Curtis brought up. August 11th, Friday, August 11th, at approximately 9:30 would be one show. And then the park staff is working on a winter special event for February 3rd, some type of family fun fest with weather permitting, sledding, ice skating, snowshoeing, that type of thing, still in the development, but we wanted to get approval for the 2 new dates as the old dates are not in play anymore. And then those would be the 2 rescheduled dates from June.
Okay.
So my understanding is we have to take out the 2024 date, because we have to wait for a new application.
We have a 2023 permit application, so we can only do the August 11th. We'll have to come back with a 24 application permit.
Okay.
I move to approve the permit to all Oxford Township Parks and Recreation to host fireworks events scheduled for Friday, August 11th, 2023. Further, the Oxford Township Parks and Recreation Department will continue to work closely with the Oxford Fire Department, Wooley County Sheriff's Office, ensure all safety and health regulations are followed as pertains to this fireworks event.
Second. On a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Noel. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
And Trustee Dane.
Yes.
If Phil, the application is dated, it's a 2023 fireworks application.
No problem.
We can't get the 24 on there.
No problem.
You get to come back.
We'll be back in 24 anyway, so.
All right, item 12D, master plan update proposal. Doug Luan is from Carlisle Workman and Associates, presenting to us tonight a proposal to update our master plan for 2024.
Thank you. Doug Lewan, Carlisle Workman Associates. Your current master plan, which is right here, has its basis and structure goes back to about 2005. So it's been updated a number of times since then, most recently 2019. So it's in need of an update. And you can do a couple different things with the updates. State law, Public Act 33 indicates that a community is supposed to review their master plan each 5 years. So next year, September of 2024 will be the 5-year mark from the last time the master plan was touched. So a community has a couple options. You can simply look at the master plan if you'd like. And I'll just tell you, this is the most inexpensive option. Your planning commission can look at the current master plan and put it on an agenda. And if they make a determination that the current master plan is acceptable and perfectly fine, all they have to do is make a motion to that effect, and your master plan technically is good for another 5 years. So that would be the easiest, quickest approach, and that would maintain your current master plan over the next 5 years. As you can see from our memorandum, we believe there are some things, and I believe our office, in speaking with Supervisor Curtis, there are some changes that have occurred within the community, and we think the master plan should be looked at maybe in a little more comprehensive manner. But we I was trying to tell my communities that, while the state law says you're supposed to review your master plan every 5 years, you technically don't have to rewrite your master plan every 5 years. So in our proposal that we gave you, there are 3 types of review that we're looking at. One would be kind of a basic update. And by the way, these would be, all 3 of those, or even the basic update, is going to be more of a comprehensive review than we've had in the past. The past updates, going back to 2005, have kind of left the current document in its current status during each one of those reviews. This would be a more comprehensive update. And so we've got a basic update that we're proposing, and you can see on page 2 of our proposal that provides a certain amount of detail and review. And we have a comprehensive, what we call middle of the road comprehensive update, which is between $40,000 and $50,000, and then we call it a full-blown rewrite, which would be about $60,000 to $70,000. That has substantially more public input, what we call pop-up charrette exercises, things like that could occur throughout the community during the course of the master plan update. However, our review of the plan, we would recommend the kind of middle of the road, the comprehensive update. And the range that's provided is, our proposals are typically a not to exceed amount. So we're talking between 40 and 50, so it would be not to exceed 50. It could be 40, depending on how the plan came and some of the additional changes that the planning commission might want, additional changes that the trustees might want. So that's why there's a range, because it could be 40, but if there's some additional work that has to be done, it might bump it up to that 50 mark, but that's a not to exceed range. So that is the proposal. You have we have been part of your master plan all these years, going back to Don Wortman, some of you might remember, and so that's what we're proposing.
I want to make a comment here. One thing we've never included in our master plan, and I've talked with Megan, and it'll probably run us up on the higher end. I've been in discussion with Engineer Sharp. We have a water filtration system in our township. We don't know what the build out for that is. We want to justify that we can build X number of homes, we can build X number of improvements without taxing our water or telling us we need additional this. The build out plan to include what can be put on some of these properties would take us up to the higher end of the comprehensive build out, but it's doable with software that she explained to me. I forgot the name of it, but I wanted to tell the board members part of this master plan will include build out for the township, letting us know with engineer sharp data and this data, what can we build here? What without taxing the roads, the infrastructure, what's our build out plan? So I've been working on that with Megan and Jim, and hopefully moving forward with that. So that would be included in this. And I think the master plan comprehensive package would be good. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Trustee Charles.
What do you mean by small area plans?
It could be called a small area plan. Some master plans call it a sub-area plan. So those would be, those could be defined geographic parts of the township that might need some special attention.
Such as?
Well, it could be a corridor. If there's a corridor or an area that's you believe might have a lot of growth into the future, those, and I can't tell you where those would be right now. Typically, sub-area plans, I typically call them sub-area plans or small area plans, would be determined by the planning commission during.
How about an example?
I can give you an example. Oxford Hills.
East Drainer.
Yeah.
East Drainer.
The East Central Area Plan.
What do we want to do with that? The Central Area District was a comprehensive area. What you want in an area, you don't want in an area also. Our Northeast Quadrant, we don't want development up there. And things in that area that they would review.
So you carve out sections, that small area means sections within the 36
Yes.
square miles, and say this here, et cetera. That's what you mean by small area
Yes.
plans.
Yes.
What's the difference between what you're doing and going to the SEMCOG website? I see that SEMCOG all across
We would be using SEMCOG data generally, but we have other data sources that our company pays for that are more up to date than SEMCOG. SEMCOG and particularly the census, of course the census is a 10-year amount, and that's already getting a little out of date, but still good. Your current master plan, I believe, has 2010 census data, but we pay for a service, the name now escapes me, that is very up-to-date information that we would use, in addition to the SEMCOG data.
More up to date than the 2020 census?
Yes.
So you're using the SEMCOG data that is on the website, or you have other, besides
Yeah,
that,
no,
you have third, and you have the census, and you have your own private party, so 3 entities you're involved in.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir, Treasurer Ferrari.
I understand the comprehensive update. I think it's been such a long time since we've had these charrettes. A lot of new residents move in, the whole Waterstone area. It might be time for us to bite the bullet and do a master plan rewrite, see exactly where we want to be in 20 years. And I understand the comprehensive, that takes a lot of what we already have. Maybe it's time to do the old charrettes, bring our new people in, all the different quadrants. What do you want to see here? I mean, because who saw this master plan in 2015 or 2019 may not be who's here in 2023. So I mean, that's how I'm thinking. I mean, I don't want to spend the extra money, but now might be the time to get a good direction from our communities. What do you want us to look like? Do you want us to be a Rochester Hills? Do you want us to be a West Bloomfield? Do you want to be more residential? Do you want industrial? Do you want commercial? I mean, you know, it could be a bedroom community like West Bloomfield, or it could be more of a industrial community like in Auburn Hills. Well, what do you want?
And part of what part of how this will start to be determined is during that, you have a meeting in August that we call plan to plan, and so that will help set. You know, we can. I always say that as a planner, I've been doing this 35 years. I could sit in a closet with a light and write your master plan, and I could write a master plan for any community. It's probably not going to end up to be what you want, and so that plan to plan is going to be, you know, hearing from you, hearing from the trustees, hearing from the planning commissioners, what it is you exactly want in that plan, how far you want the plan to go, and that's, we will know more after that plan to plan meeting.
Okay, let me stop right there for a minute. Danielle sent out an email on June 15th. We are wanting to schedule a meeting to begin the process of updating the township's master plan. This is an evening event, and it'll go from 6 to 9. I'd like to meet sometime in August, and I'll throw out some dates in the next few days. We've sent some dates out, and we would like to get some responses back to hold a plan the plan meeting. Now, when the planning commission, the township board determines that what Joe is saying is consensus, I think that's at the time we could make the motion to do a comprehensive or an extensive one. Getting everybody's viewpoint from planning and the township board, because it's critical that we do plan for the future. Number one, our infrastructure with our water and sewer, and number two, with how we want the township to be developed. So, with that, we are in consensus that we want to do our master plan.
Is that a question?
We are in consensus, we would like to review and do a master plan. We haven't determined which one, but can you walk away tonight with us saying, yes, we're gonna do it? And on the first night that we have our plan to plan meeting, can we take a vote to take a stab at which one we want? I'm looking at our attorney, so that plan to plan evening is an open meeting, because we're all there. We can make the recommendation that we go with the full-blown or the comprehensive. It's way above just a rewrite of what we have, because we do have some critical infrastructure needs right now.
I think that's a great idea, and that's this idea of a plan to plan. You know, I've been with Carlisle Wortman 30 years, and this was a big Don Wortman idea, and
yes,
he really liked to have these plan to plan before we get too far down the road. So I think that's I would be very comfortable leaving with that idea.
Okay. Any other questions? What do you want to do? table the decision. I'll make a motion to table the decision on what plan we want, but to move forward with approval to do a master plan review for 2024.
Second.
I have a motion by Supervisor Curtis and a second by Trustee Noel. Roll call, please.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis?
Yes.
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Thank you. That's a good idea. Let's do it, plan the plan.
Thank you.
Plus, Jake, depending what we have them do, we want to make sure they're on board too. So we don't do a lot of the work.
Exactly. 12C, CDBG for emergency services. Treasurer Ferrari?
Board members, we just need to approve this contract between us and Fish for the 2021 CDBG funds for emergency services. I'll make a motion that the Oxford Township Board of Trustees agrees to waive this resolution to solicit bids and awards the emergency services bid for 2021 Community Development Block Grant Fund, CDBG, amount of $9,175 to Oxford Orion Fish, and authorize the CDBG coordinator, Joseph G. Ferrari, to sign the applicable documents of proposal ratification.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Payne. Are there any questions?
Excuse me.
Roll call?
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis?
Yes.
Trustee Charles?
Yes.
And Clerk Wright, yes.
Okay, item 12D, safety path. Item 1, safety path ordinance recommended changes.
Board members, the Safety Path Committee has been meeting and discussing these issues. We've also talked with Supervisor Curtis. We'd like to have the ability to work with our planner and attorney to kind of sit down with us and look through the ordinance, kind of on the same lines of plan to plan type thing. Look through and see what we need to change and what may need to be amended, added, or deleted.
So what we're looking for is the authority to have our planner and our attorneys work on the complete safety path ordinance.
Rewrite, if needed.
Rewrite. Make the motion.
I'll make a motion that the Oxford Township Board of Trustees authorize the Oxford Township Safety Path Committee to work with the Township Attorney and Township Planner to update the Safety Path Ordinance. Once the updates have been completed, it is further authorized that the amended Safety Path Ordinance be placed on a future Township Board agenda for a first reading.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari and a second by Trustee Payne. Now, I'm going to ask Attorney, which one do I want? Ellis. Please stand up, I want to ask you a question. Should we include the Planning Commission member, or we don't have a Planning Commission member on the Safety Path Committee? But in your opine, you said that the Planning Commission sets the master plan for the safety path to be included, and any of the ordinances that would have to go in plans for the future Planning Commission. Should there be a member of that Planning Commission on the Safety Path Committee for these ordinance reviews, or should they just go to the Planning Commission?
So they're not zoning ordinance amendments, so they don't need to go to your planning commission by ordinance. However, there is a benefit to having your planning commission weigh in on your safety path ordinance amendments, since your planning commission will be reviewing your master plan to update your safety path plan. I can see the value in that.
Okay,
So once we're done, maybe give it to them, just kind of give their review on it.
Yes, the board can request planning commission review of that ordinance.
Once we get to that point.
okay, not during the rewrite, but let them review it at the end. Okay, that was my question.
Okay.
I have a motion by,
There's a question.
Oh. You don't want to be on it?
I'm not on there.
Question, should we include the engineer on there?
He's already part of the safety path.
So if there's any technical or engineering aspects that need to be updated, you should definitely have your engineer involved.
Okay. Clerk Wright.
That can probably be done when we meet for the Safety Path Committee. He can be part of that discussion at that time.
Okay. So the motion stands, right? The second was
Trustee Payne.
trustee Payne, correct. No, roll call.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
And Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Item number 2, railroad safety path request for bids. Treasurer Ferrari.
Board members, we've discussed this issue at the Safety Path Committee level. CJ Carnacchio came to us, you have the information. We have monies available through federal funds for this project, but if you take a look at the monies that were requested and what was presented in the packet, it might be better for us to go a different route. And I'd like to have CJ come kind of explain a little bit more what his thinking is.
Thanks, Joe. Well, basically, as you know, we were awarded, Congressman Slotkin had originally come to us and encouraged us to apply for congressional funding for this project. And Congress did approve $374,696 for it. And, she came to us, we told her this is a shovel-ready project. This has already been designed. A previous grant that I got paid for Jim Sharp to do the design. He also secured all the necessary easements and permits. It's ready to go. Unfortunately, if we go the federal route and use the federal money, we'll have to follow state and federal requirements, which increase cost, they're complicated, they're cumbersome. We're no longer looking at a project that's shovel-ready. We'd have to redesign it because federal standards call for 10-foot safety path or shared use path, not 8-foot. So there's a cost there. The easements that had already been obtained for free, MDOT requires you to pay for easements. Even if someone's willing to give you the easement, they require you to pay for it. And also we'd have the Davis-Bacon Act, the prevailing wages. So the cost increases, and now instead of a $470,000 construction, you're looking at perhaps close to $700,000 or more. But as my understanding, and the Safety Path Committee can speak to it better, that they were more concerned with delays in the project, because now it would be MDOT bidding the project, not us. So you're looking at more delays due to the design and their bidding process and the loss of local control. Whereas you could just do this project now, because the impetus for this project was the safety of the kids. That's why Congressman Slotkin's office recommended that we submit the project, was because this is going to provide an emergency access. Should, God forbid, anything ever happen again at the high school, the kids will have a route. And I think the Safety Path Committee is wisely choosing, let's do that now, let's get it in, let's not wait till next year or whenever, let's do it now. So the committee can speak to their reasoning. But I just learned these facts, felt it was my responsibility to bring it to the committee and let you guys make the decision which route you wanted to go.
I move that the Charter Township of Oxford refuse to accept the $374,696 federal funding award toward the construction costs of the railroad North Oxford Road Safety Path project, and authorize Sharp Engineering to prepare bid specifications and solicit requests for bids for the construction of the railroad North Oxford Road Safety Path project, with proposed recommendation to approve a bid and select a contractor at the August 9th, 2023 Oxford Township Board of Trustees meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Colvin. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. And Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Okay, 12D3, rescission of safety path master plan. Treasurer Ferrari.
Board members, the Safety Path Committee has looked at the master plan a couple times over the years. Realize we probably haven't been doing it correctly. So we want to definitely rescind what we've done in the past and have it be included in this whole master plan update process. So with that, I move to rescind the Oxford Township Safety Path Master Plan that was approved at the March 8th, 2023 Oxford Township Board of Trustees meeting, and approve a Safety Path Master Plan to be included with the updated Oxford Township Master Plan to be presented for approval in the future.
Second.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Payne. Are there any questions? Yes, sir, Trustee Charles.
So this gets rescinded, what do we fall back to?
I can answer that. It's in the master plan.
In the existing master plan then?
Yes. Any other questions? Roll call.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes. 12E, paid time off policy overview. Attorney Nancy Oland, please.
Good evening.
Hi.
All right, I'm going to walk you through a presentation about paid time off and transition to a paid time off policy. Do I have a clicker or is someone running the show?
Curtis is doing.
I'll move the slides, but you gotta bear with me.
No worries, no worries. All right, so as we look into this, the reasons that we would come through in doing this policy was when there was an in-service done and the employees at the township really talked about the desire to have a little bit more control over their time off and how it is handled. We're looking at policy review and update. That's another reason there are already revisions going on within the handbook, and this is an area that needed to be tightened up a little bit. There's also a little bit of administrative efficiency. Currently, there are multiple banks that are monitored and checked. This would create one bank instead. And then creating a consistent practice in how time off is used across the township, sort of taking away that this department does it this way, this department does it that way. The benefits that we're going to find for PTO, they're listed on here. I'm not going to go into great detail. You're going to see on here, there's a lot of information about how this changes how employees view their employment. And it ultimately comes down to making them feel better about the work that they do and more engaged in what they're doing in present. If we look at how important PTO is to employees across the nation, not just here in the township, just if you look at the feedback about that, when employees are looking to find a new job, about 83% of them are going to say that the time off is going to be a critical component in choosing whether they want to take that new job. And for employees that are evaluating whether they want to leave their current employer, at least 60% of them are going to say that that's a critical factor in deciding whether they should stay or go. So it's important for employees across the nation. As we look at the policy, and we're going to talk about that later, but there are some assumptions about how this policy and what it's going to include. So when we talk about paid time off, we are assuming that that includes your vacation time, time you take off for being sick, personal time, doctor's appointments, visits, things like that. And then holidays somewhat. We're gonna look at holidays included and then held out. We're gonna look at some comparisons that include holiday time off and those that don't. Time off policy at the township would exclude jury duty, bereavement, and any type of unpaid leave. Those would remain separate and would not be included. When we look at incremental increases, okay, so when we gathered a lot of information to do comparisons, right? So we can say this is what other communities are doing. Some folks listed as, I get this many days off, some folks listed in hours. So if a comparable organization said days, we just converted that to an 8-hour day. So when you see all the information that I'm going to go through, we're talking about in hours. This is how many hours you're going to get, and then we can convert it into days. So when we say day, we mean 8 hours, okay? All right. One of the other things that we looked at was how does PTO grow with your tenure? So there's a set standard here at the township, and then we looked at what was done everywhere else. And usually there is a solid set of tiers. New hires get a certain amount. After a year, 2 years, you get something. And then it usually grows in like 5, 10, 15-year increments. You'll see that's a little different than the current structure. Usually employers are going to have about 4 to 6 tiers. Oxford currently utilizes 6. It's listed up here, less than 6 months, then at 6 months to a year, then 1 to 2. So the changes here in Oxford generally come at the beginning of your employment period versus looking at how long you've been here and providing additional for extra. Okay. All right, so again, I want to put a lens and a foundation. So if we look at PTO across the nation, looking at private sectors, and these are listed in 5, 10, 15, and 20-year increments, you're going to see that in the private sector, folks average when they start a new job, newer job, around 18 days off a year up to 27 days off per year. When we flip over and we look specifically at the government sectors, you're going to see that there's a little bit more benefits provided there. So on a national average, newer employees are going to get about 24 days off, whereas after you've been there for quite a while, you're going to end up with about 34. If we look at Oxford, it ranges right now from a little more than 7 days to a maximum of 25 days off. So you can see that it's not aligned to even the private or public sector across the nation. So we wanted to get out of the big broad nation and just look really at communities that are closer to Oxford. So we said, who could we compare to? So we looked at townships. You're gonna see on our comparable list, there's 10 different townships that are across 4 different counties. And all of the time off that we are looking at is gonna talk about a combination of sick, personal, and vacation time. Some of these other communities still dice it up into separate banks. We're putting it all together and saying this, if we were just comparing apples to apples, hours to hours, this is how many they get. So you're gonna see on this slide up here a list of the communities, and we ranked them on this slide in order of population. So the largest community that we looked at, Harrison Township, with a little more than 24,000 according to the most recent US Census data. Oxford's about 3rd on the list as far as size of all of these comparable communities, all right? So a little bit more detail on that community comparison. We looked at all of their municipality structures. These populations, they might have had a little bit more, but no more than 3,500 more or less than what Oxford Township has. All of the communities have a higher Oakland County assessed value, median value on the homes. All of these townships operate Monday through Friday, just like Oxford Township, and none of the communities have a smaller workforce than Oxford Townships. So everybody that we're looking at was your size bigger, all right? All right, so now I'm gonna jump into, we're just gonna do a quick look at just straight comparable time off. I'm gonna talk to you about holiday time a little bit, but just looking at straight paid time off, the chart in front of you now, we're gonna show in the order of those communities, who gives the most time versus who gives the least. So we saw the other slide, we saw Oxford at the top as far as size. Now we're gonna see that out of all of those communities, Oxford provides the least amount of benefits to its employees as far as time off in comparison to all of those other communities. All right. Now, if we talk about holidays, that's gonna change things just a little bit. Garfield Township provides less holiday time off than the township would. And a lot of that is in part to, in the next slide you're gonna see that the township is talking about, you wanna hit that for me, sir? We look at comparable time off and now we throw in the holidays. So we're saying, okay, all over, this is how much time that we get off, including holidays. We're still at the bottom of the list if you throw in even the holidays. And that accounts for the inclusion of even a 13th holiday. Does anybody have any questions so far? All right.
No questions?
So remember that there were generally 12 holidays here in Oxford, but there's a 13th observed holiday, and the idea is that that holiday would be able to be assigned at the beginning of the year. I think this year, July 3rd, that day was taken off. This would put one into the handbook that says the board has the discretion to say when we're going to add that, so you can create operational ease when those major holidays fall, Tuesdays, Thursdays, kind of things like that. Okay. All right, so before we...
Could we back up for a minute, Nancy?
Absolutely.
If we just point out at the bottom of that slide, the annual holiday will be announced in the 3rd quarter of the preceding year. That's so we can get it in the budget of an additional holiday approved by this board. If the board should approve it, we then have a finite number we can budget to.
Absolutely. Okay. So we just look at these communities, for the average for their PTO, 133 minimum to 274. Now if we go and look for the median, right, we're just looking at numbers. Even if we look at just the median, it's 144 to 286. Oxford is not meeting the median or the average in what it provides to its employees as far as time off. Okay, so we have a proposed draft policy, and we can walk through that, and we'll talk about the purpose of the policy, the scope, what the proposed ideas for PTO awards, how it will be used, what happens if you don't use your time, and then what happens if you separate employment, what's going to happen to that PTO bank. This policy is going to account for all of those different variables. So we look at the first piece, the policy. The purpose is to, identify employee benefits, right? It's going to promote a healthy work-life balance. I can plan what I need to do. It's going to promote recruitment and retention, which is one of the key components to this. Like I said earlier, employees stay where they value their PTO and they want to work at places that provide PTO. It's also going to provide flexibility for planned and unplanned life events. As it is now, you might have a large vacation bank and a very small number of sick hours. Well, what if my sickness is a long time versus my vacation? Right now, employees are put in a position where they're having to figure out how to make that work and may not be able to use time off that you've already set aside or budgeted for them because it falls into a different bank. Okay? So this would fix that and allow employees a lot more flexibility to control how they use the time off that the township provides them. So the scope would be that it's going to apply to all of your full-time employees. Part-time employees do not receive paid time off benefits and they would not under this policy, so there is no change to that. The proposed increments here, you're going to see on this chart what the current amount is and then what the proposed new minimum up to the new maximums would be. So what we've done here is we've reorganized the tiers. Instead of those 6 tiers that front load the beginning of your employment, we're going to look more at, we're going to recognize tenure, and you're going to earn more potential time off based upon how long you're with the township, which is a good retention type of a tool. So let's look at the first year, right? I just start with the township. Right now, I get up to 64 hours off. It would start now that when I come in, I'm going to get 80 hours. Understand that that will be prorated, and we'll talk about that. That's described in the policy a little bit more, but it's not if I start in if I start in November, you're going to give me 80 hours. We're going to figure out what's left, and then I'll get that amount to use for the remainder of the year. Then we go up to the 4th year, and then again, I'll just keep going for the 5th. So you can see that there's an increase to what your current employees have for every tier. So there will be a transition. Thank you. Obviously, you have to be good stewards of how you are using the township funds, and so this is a slide that's going to give you a little bit of direction on how this will financially impact the townships, and then also how it will impact those individual employees and how it's going to change for them. You can see that the proposal will be a little less than a total $15,000 projected impact for 2024. So the policy will also go into how do we use PTO time. It would allow employees to use PTO in 1-hour increments, leave early, come late for appointments, things like that, versus having to take a full day off. It was going to require that PTO requests are approved, and then in order for how that's done, so a first come, first served basis, operational needs, something big is going on in a department, you can't approve the time off, you still have the authority to do that. And then if folks ask for the same time off, the tiebreaker is going to be their seniority or their years of service, but the number one guiding force would be who do we need here to do the job, operational needs, the number one. Advance requests would be required if you're going to ask to take 5 days a week off or more. And you need to get the notice back from the department head. This will formalize that process that don't buy your plane ticket until your time's been approved. So that type of a thing. And then also, how do we handle unscheduled PTO use, right? So when I'm not asking to take time off next week, but something comes up and I have to call in, the policy also walks through how we handle when you get to use PTO for those types of calls. Okay, so if you have folks that are not using all of their time off, and they may remain your employees, what happens at the end of the year? So how it would work is that you would be able to cash out some of the PTO time that you hadn't used. And you can do that by taking a lump sum payment, or you could roll over a number of those years into the next year. And then you would have to use them, or what would happen is you would end up losing them. So how this would work is you would never be able to cash out or roll over more than 40 hours. And the idea of the 40 hours is if something happens to someone, they got sick, that type of thing, they are going to have 40 hours in the bank. And then folks also might look at, I'd rather use my 40 hours to buy Christmas presents than take the time off, so they could cash that out, and that would be their option. There is a form that employees would fill out for that, and they would need to put out requests by December 1st. If something should happen after they put in that request and they use that time off, then that policy talks about how do we recoup the time off that we've already either paid them or forwarded for them, so there is no loss to the township should something like that happen. So if it's time to separate from employment and you have a bank, you would be able to get paid out the bank up to a certain amount, a maximum of 80 hours. And it would always, of course, be subject to taxes and deductions, and it would not be included in any retirement contributions or counted towards that type of a compensation. It would be segmented out for that. You would also, that policy also says that if you want to cash out, you got to give us at least a 2-week notice. So we wouldn't have people just walking off. Hopefully that might help with that. I don't know that that's a problem here in Oxford Township, but looking down the road, it's a good policy piece to have in. And then after I put in my notice and say, hey, I'm going to resign, I'm not going to say, oh, and by the way, I'm going to put in for 3 weeks of time off and then just, sort of stay at home during my last 3 weeks. The policy addresses that since you can't do anything like that as well. The transition to implement this policy would be to approve the idea of having the paid time off policy here at this meeting. That way, through July through October, you'll be able to address any collateral issues, adjust pieces of the handbook that reference sick, vacation time, things like that, getting ready for the budget, obviously. November, we would be able to have that updated policy distributed, voted on and out, and then let employees know what they can expect their 2024 PTO award to be. And then start accepting the time off request in December for the following year. And by January 1, this would be the policy that's in place for current employees. Do you have any questions about the
Board
PTO?
members, any questions? Trustee Charles?
Keeps track of all this.
So that will be determined by the township in the administrative piece. You could have it be centralized and have it be, because the size of the township, you could have it centralized where all requests go to the supervisor's office, that kind of thing, or it can be done by the departments, which would be fine because you have a policy in place that says this is how we do it, so it's the same in each department versus one doing it one way.
Well, administratively, I'm looking at this thing where you mentioned that somebody could say, I want to take off part of a day. So I assume they would go to the department chairperson and say, I want 4 hours off. That person has to communicate to somebody else.
They would be communicating.
I mean, are we creating an administrative problem or not?
Right now, the same thing is done, but it's reported by the department head to the payroll person. She's sitting to your left. So if somebody takes a 4-hour bank of their sick days, as they're called today, they report that to their department head, to Susan, who handles the payroll.
Well, we don't have sick days, that's correct. Personal time and vacation time.
Part of the reason that we're going through this right now is you have personal time, you have a floating holiday, and you have vacation days. And in our handbook, each one requires a certain parameter before you can use them. And this really hit heavy during COVID. If we told you during COVID, you had 5 days you had to stay out, I don't have 5 personal days, but you couldn't ask for vacation time because in the handbook, you had to give 2 weeks notice to use vacation time. So in order to get with like communities and get according to the law, this was what we came up with. Any other questions? Trustees?
I move to approve a paid time off policy, implement corresponding amendments to the Oxford Township Employee Handbook, and to accordingly adjust current employee time off banks effective January 1, 2024.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Trustee Charles. Are there any questions?
I do have just a clarification. I've looked at this several times, but just for I got the chart up here, less than 1 year up to 80 hours. It's prorated the first year, but it says years of service 1 to 4. They haven't completed that first year until they're into their next calendar year per se.
I'm sorry, what do you?
I mean, up here on the screen, you'll see years of service less than 1 year. They're going to get prorated, these 80 hours. But what happens in year 1, where does this person fit in here as far as time off goes? So they're going to say they get hired in November, we're gonna have 2 months of service then. Are they still in this box here?
No. No, so the way that the policy is written is on January 1, if your anniversary date is that year, you're gonna be given the number of hours that you would receive as if your anniversary had already occurred. So let's say it was you're gonna have 5 years during that year. We're gonna front load you for 5 years worth versus just the 4 years. So that new employee would get the full 168 during their the year that they would hit 1 year of employment.
So even though their first year is not completed?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
mixing 1 year on the job versus a 1 year anniversary. Your 1 year anniversary is the following year, is in the following year.
Right.
Yeah. Any other questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis?
Yes.
Clerk Wright? Yes. And Trustee Charles?
Yes.
Very good, thank you, Nancy, don't go away. Paid time off policy, board members in your packet, you want to pull that up? You got it right there. Is the paid time off policy that we would like to replace in the handbook.
Absolutely, and the presentation that I just did when we talked about the policy, I said walk through and it went through purpose and use. That is the policy, I walked through that. It does provide for all of those particulars about what happens when you start late in the year, you use unpaid time off, how does that affect your PTO? It's all detailed within that policy.
Yeah, we just approved the time off schedule. What we're approving now is the paid time off policy that's gonna go in the handbook.
Where's that?
Well, the motion Joe gave was approving the paid off
Oh, so
policy.
we already did that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wrote the house.
Kill two birds with one stone.
Really, the first one was just a presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, holiday closure, item 12G, holiday closure schedule for 2024. Board members, what we're doing is budgeting out for 2024, and to be comparable, the charts before you showed the average is 13 days. Oxford utilizes a 12-day allocated to the township, is closed for holidays. With the approval of the revised compensation package, bringing the township up to average for holidays off, we'd recommend adding one holiday. The following proposed days to select from for various reasons. One, an individual brought forward February 19th. President's Day is a Monday. In honor of our past president, many municipalities honor this day off. June 19th, commemorating the emancipation of enslaved African Americans in 1865, both state and federal holiday with banks, post office, and municipalities honor this day off. July the 5th, that's the Friday. It's a Friday. July the 4th is a Thursday. July the 5th is a Friday. Many municipalities and businesses close on this day, affording their employees a 4-day holiday weekend. Questions? Yes, sir.
My thoughts are for 2024, eliminate the floating holiday and add in June 19th and July 5th.
Well, you're giving them 14 days then.
No, you're eliminating the floating.
Well, that floating's
Floating's
eliminated anyway
gone.
with what you just did.
The floating was
gone.
the 13th.
Oh, the floating's gone now?
Yeah.
It was the 13th holiday.
We eliminated that when we approved the policy.
Yeah, when we approved the policy.
So the floating holiday's gone, even though we had it.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a floating holiday, it was just a floating day.
Personal time off day.
Well, I'd still like to include June 19th and maybe add July 5th as a 1-year thing, because of the way
So
the holiday falls.
So for 2024, you're recommending that we honor June 19th.
And July 5th for
And
the
July
1 year.
5th is a Friday after the 4th, which, make the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the following holiday schedule, approve the following additional holiday to the 2024 holiday schedule, June 19th, and for 2024 alone, July 5th.
Second.
Oxford Township.
I have a motion by Treasurer Ferrari, a second by Supervisor Curtis. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
Because I think because of the way we just reviewed the paid time off policy, we want to bring it up even with the other municipalities. We're going above and beyond that, so.
Yes, we are.
That's my comment.
Okay.
Chris, when I looked at that, and I thought about that too, at Christmas time, we can't give them a turkey or a ham. If I give you July 5th, that's equal to a ham, I think. That's
Any
my-
questions? Roll call.
That's a damn you're buying.
That's an expensive one.
I don't know.
Trustee
Pretty big
Noel.
family to feed.
No.
Trustee Payne.
No.
Trustee Colvin.
No.
Trustee Charles.
No.
Treasurer Ferrari.
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes,
Clerk Wright, no.
motion failed. Do I have another motion?
I make a motion to approve the following additional holiday to the 2024 approved holiday schedule of July 5th for Oxford Township.
Second.
I have a motion by trustee Charles and a second by trustee Payne. Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Charles.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Supervisor Curtis.
Yes,
Treasurer Ferrari.
No.
Trustee Noel.
Yes.
Trustee Payne.
Yes.
And Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
July 5th. Okay, let me just circle that, move that there. Board members, 12H, office operations manager position. I'm glad we have both attorneys here. The compensation committee was charged with finding a way to compensate committee work done outside of committees by trustees who are assigned to the committees that don't get a salary. And I would ask Attorney Olin to come up, and would you explain what kind of conundrum we're in with that?
The compensation for trustees and board members, it can be a little bit complex because there are regulations related to per diem, per meeting, salaries, and it all has to be set prior, it all should be set prior to actually implementing it through a written policy. And I don't believe that that exists right now, so we would want to work with the township and that committee to develop that policy and determine exactly what we're looking to accomplish, whether it's per diem, meetings, or salaries to compensate folks for their time.
Okay, so what we found was, it was so complex, but what we found were committees that were doing, or committee members were doing work that could not be compensated. We found that committees were not following all guidelines and producing out of context recommendations to the township board. We have members that are doing budgets for multi-million-dollar bonding projects that is not part of their job. It's always just been given to that person because that person willingly accepted it. And one of the notes is when a committee was charged with doing single hauler, there is no way we could pay the committee member that worked diligently and hard many, many hours outside of committee because we don't have a policy and the work still needs to be done. Currently, in the Water and Sewer Committee, we are talking about a $4.5 million bond. We're talking about rates that do not get reviewed or adjusted yearly until we know we can't meet our bill from the WRC for sewage. The GLWA charges us this year $4.5 million. What's the number for 2025? Curtis, do you have that off the top of your head?
Well, that's the total amount of bonds.
That's
Probably $2.5 to $3 million.
And then the following year, we have more. Every year, the GLWA passes to us the maintenance schedule, the maintenance cost of the sewer system to run sewage to the Connor Waste Treatment Plant. We are talking about sewer rates daily, water rates daily. All of this analytical thing is being done approximately 10 hours a day with 10 hours a week with the WRC or GLWA. We have water sewer committee meetings. We have safety path committee meetings. We have committees that meet that don't have minutes. We have committees that meet that have work to do outside the committee. So what we did was we stopped working on this committee pay for trustees because we don't know the direction we want to go, but we have a vast amount of work that needs to be done every week, including Treasurer Ferrari's office, Clerk Wright's office, my office, and we just pass this work along to trustees who come in and work on single hauler rates, and we can't, rightfully so, pay them. We have enough work to call for a person. An office operations manager person was proposed by the compensation committee. While we will still look at committee representation pay, this person was proposed due to the workload of all the things in this township as we grow. Current development monies to date, we have over $1 million in building permits in the building permit department. We have proposals coming to us in pre-application meetings for approximately 700 homes. We're rewriting our master plan because our township is developing. Even articles from experts tell you, have your people in place before you try and chase the people after the work has arrived, right, Joe? Is that yes?
Yes.
Okay, thought so. Anyway, that's what this person is charged with, and in there is a description of the job, and I think there was one change to be made. Did you make that, Curtis?
Not in the packet.
Okay.
The
Serves as a recording secretary.
It's item two.
It's item 2.
Item 2, serves as a reserve recording secretary. But the office operations manager's duty is called out down there, doing everything from public hearing notices and financial recording of sewer rates to committee meeting minutes, to agendas, to making sure legislation activities are communicated to the committees, minutes at the committees. So these were proposed as an office operations manager. Any questions?
I'm open for some discussion.
Come on up. What? Oh wait, Phil had his hand up.
Just one typo on your, under general summary there at the top. You call it office and operations assistant. I think you want that to be office operations manager to match the job title.
Ah, I see that. Oh man, he called you out on that.
Good job.
I know, you did that.
Well, there goes your 2024.
Got it, thank you. Trustee Nold.
May 10th, Mr. Wright put together a package to talk about compensation for committees. Within that package, he included all the committees that he felt that were within the township. He also had a one-page summary of committees and some of the issues with it, as well as a handout from, I believe, MT&A, Catherine Mullipet. And from that discussion that we had on May 10th, there was a committee protocol that was a motion, and the motion was Supervisor Curtis moved, Clerk Wright second, to request the Compensation and Performance Evaluation Committee research and prepare a recommendation for compensation for committees.
Yes.
And from what we just discussed tonight, they did that. They concluded that we need a written policy.
Yes.
And that they stopped work and they don't know the direction to come.
No.
That's what you said earlier.
No, I didn't say that. I said we hit a wall when we found all of the things that Catherine Mullipet told us and our attorneys told us, that our compensation package for the committee members is not correct. It's not right.
Okay.
And we stopped right there because we don't want to move forward and create a monster and be unfair and inequitable. We ran reports for payroll for township trustees. Some got paid as high as $16,000, some got as low as $5,900. Other years, $12,000, lows of $2,000. So just a paintbrush across, let's pay our trustees $8,000 a year. we didn't feel comfortable with making a recommendation on committee member trustee pay. What we found was an opportunity to move forward efficiently and effectively in the township with a finance operations manager working on all the things and items that, I'm gonna tell you what, I've been doing them wrong for 15 years too. Because I found out that the planning commission is the one who does the safety path township. We should have this operations manager checking us. And that's why we came up with the operations manager's position. And we put on hold and are working diligently with MTA and our attorneys to come up with a fair and equitable compensation for committee or trustee members.
And I understand that.
Yes.
And that, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. But I don't see where this motion on May 10th authorized them to go out and research the township of all the work that needs to be done and come forward to us with an office operations manager position.
I'm sorry you feel that way, trustee Knoll, but when you find something that needs to be addressed, we oftentimes lag it out for a long period of time, but here we are in the threshold of all this work being done incorrectly, work being done by people who shouldn't be doing work. We've come to the point where we are coming to this board and saying, this committee is looking at the overall picture of things that aren't being done or being done wrong or being done by the wrong person. And we're identifying that and asking this board for approval to hire an office operations manager.
And one more time, I appreciate that, but the May 10th gave some direction on which the protocol of the committee was supposed to operate. And if we're to come forward with a written policy at some point in time, that we need to start following that policy. I do not see where the committee has authorization to go out and research within the township Office of Operation Manager position.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but what happens is in business and in government, when you find something that's not being done right and not being done fair and equitable, you should address that. We found that committee compensation is required and trustees' compensation should be fair. We're still working on that. We haven't stopped working on that. We understand that might not be fair for us to be doing that, but there's a whole plethora of legalities we have to work through on compensating trustees. So we're still doing that. In the interim, we found this and we're working on it. Trustee Colvin.
I was just gonna make a suggestion saying, let's move forward with any motion on the operations manager position and direct the committee to continue to look at the pay for the trustees.
I'd like to,
Yes.
I'd like to have more conversation about this position. And he spoke, I think there's a few of others that may like to speak.
What would you like to say?
Myself. Personally, you know, if you need an operations manager to handle some in-house stuff for the office, that's fine and good. As far as I'm concerned regarding the committees, we were elected by the people to do a job. If we're doing a job outside of our committees, just as we do work outside of the township board meetings, if we have to do some work outside of our committees, that's on us. That's what we were elected to do. That's all part of it. None of us are in it. None of the trustees are in it for the money. We don't make that much. It's to serve our community. So I would think that that's on us to do it. And if you're saying it's being done wrong, we need to pull in more of our professionals, more of our consultants, more of the people that know what they're doing, and stop relying on our own thoughts or rely on our own thoughts, but stop relying on our own selves as the be-all end-all, and get professional help for any committee that's needed. But I don't think putting a third person in there, a third party in there, is the answer for committees.
Thank you. Treasurer Ferrari?
What I like to see, because I know we have difference of opinion on this, have a subcommittee to discuss those two issues. And I'll suggest Supervisor Curtis, Trustee Payne, and Trustee Knoll sit down, work this thing out, come back to it. We're in no hurry, come back in August with a nice complete plan to address both issues. Then we kind of at least be on the same page.
Okay,
'Cause I'm hearing conflicting things.
here's the problem, there is no conflicting things. We are still working on an immense concern for correct payment of trustees that do committee work. We are still working on a policy to pay people outside of their trustee role to do work in the township. We're still working on that. But this was an identified need in the committee when we saw all the things that our committee members should be doing, members of the township that are doing work that shouldn't be doing the work, that have always just been given the work to do, they willingly accept it. So there's two issues. One, we're still working on the committee payment and payment for trustees. And two, the work that's not being done correctly or by the right person to address that with an operations manager. Yes, Clerk Wright.
Yeah, well, as part of this committee, we took a look at these factors as well, and as you indicated, Supervisor Curtis, the committee charge, we have not completed that issue yet, as far as coming back for equitable pay for committees, but on a side note though, as you look at what we just approved, a paid time off policy, you can see how low Oxford is in some of those categories. But on the other hand, Oxford's growing at a tremendous pace, and as an example, the Tullamore subdivision, I just drove through that last week for the first time. And they've platted out 49 lots. And to my amazement, there's 35 of them that are either started or occupied. So this is a way that's going to just continue to keep coming with the development we have coming into this township. And I'm convinced that we're either going to pay a lot of overtime, or there's going to be people that are going to be leaving Oxford because of the amount of work that's going to be put on their shoulders to keep up with what's going on. But as far as the committee level goes, we're still addressing it, like Supervisor Curtis said. And you know, if that's something this board doesn't want this position, then vote not to have it. You know, that's our charge as elected officials. And if we feel that it's not necessary, then we need to move on with the workforce that we have, and we will do that.
I move to approve the office operations manager job description and authorize Supervisor Jack Curtis to recruit, hire, and fill the operations manager position at a salary range between $60,000 and $75,000, depending on experience and qualifications, to include all benefits afforded to a full-time Oxford Township employee.
I'll second the motion.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Colvin.
Yes.
Trustee Charles.
No.
Trustee Payne.
No.
Trustee Noel.
No.
Treasurer Ferrari.
No.
Supervisor Curtis.
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes.
I'd like to make a motion. We have Supervisor Curtis, Trustee Payne, and Trustee Noel to address the office operations manager position along with the committee work issues and come back in August with a recommendation on both.
Hearing no second, the motion fails. Next item. Oxford Addison Youth Assistance Request for 2024 contributions. Trustee Charles.
Board members, the Oxford Addison Youth Assistance, you're not aware, this is Oxford Township, Oxford Village, Leonard, and Addison Township. Attached a letter from Oxford Addison Youth Assistance requesting $12,890.47 funding allocation from Oxford Township for 2024. Attached is a number of documents that are enclosed in the packet. And one of the things I'll say is that Oxford Addison Youth Assistance has done a great job the last year or so. They've, COVID, they weren't able to meet with students, but they've really gotten together lately. We've got more reporting going on than ever before. Amanda who works there has done a great job. And one of the forms that we created is a form to show accountability. And part of that is she submitted it to Supervisor Curtis in advance because we have the budget process coming up here pretty soon. So in that sense, I move to allocate $12,890.47 of the 2024 general fund funds to the Oxford Addison Youth Assistance as the Oxford Township contribution.
Second. Thank you, Trustee Charles. We worked diligently with Oxford Addison Youth. They had some mistakes due to COVID and employee personnel working with Amanda. It's been wonderful. We did ask her to present her request early this year so that we can put it into the budget and compensate for those funds this year. So are there any questions? A motion by Trustee Charles, second by Supervisor Curtis. Roll call, please.
Trustee Colvin?
Yes.
Trustee Payne?
Yes.
Trustee Noel?
Yes.
Treasurer Ferrari?
Yes.
Supervisor Curtis?
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes, and Trustee Charles?
Yes.
No items removed from the consent agenda. 14, public comment. Any comments from the public can be made at this time. Seeing none, a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.